In 1866, Fyodor Dostoevsky published a novel about a young man who believed he was special. Raskolnikov, broke, bitter, brilliant, develops a theory. He calls it the doctrine of the extraordinary man. Humanity, he argues, is not one species but two. The vast majority are ordinary, born to obey, to reproduce, to die without consequence. But a select few, the Napoleons, the Caesars, and the lawgivers, possess what Raskolnikov calls an inner right to transgress. To steal, to kill, to reshape the world according to their vision, no matter how many corpses pave the road. For these men, morality is not a law, it is a limitation, designed by the weak to constrain the strong. Raskolnikov decides to test himself. He murders an elderly pawnbroker with an axe. If he is truly extraordinary, he will feel nothing. He will walk away clean, confirmed in his superiority. But he does not walk away clean. The murder destroys him. Not the law, but his own conscience. He confesses and accepts exile to Siberia. And in the novel's final pages, he falls weeping at the feet of a woman who loves him, surrendering his theory forever. Dostoevsky's verdict is clear. The extraordinary man is a fantasy, a dangerous delusion. No human being can sever themselves from guilt, from empathy, and from the weight of what they've done. But what if Dostoevsky was wrong?
I submit.
Griffith is not a refutation of Raskolnikov's theory. He is its fulfillment. And his success exposes the darkest thing Dostoevsky only implied, that the extraordinary man is possible, but becoming him requires something Raskolnikov could never do, which is to give up your own humanity. Before we can listen to the structure of the argument, Griffith is not merely describing ambition, he is constructing a moral hierarchy. At the bottom are those with no dreams at all. He calls them dead, biological life without spiritual substance. In the middle, those who have dreams but surrender them. The soldiers who follow him, the dreamers who attach themselves to someone greater because their own visions aren't strong enough to survive alone. These people are useful, he values them, but they are not his equals. They are, in his words, comrades, which is a softer way of saying instruments. At the top are the dreamers, whose vision is so consuming that it swallows other dreams whole. The storm that scatters 1,000 smaller flames. This is where Griffith places himself. Not out of vanity, though there is vanity in it, but out of genuine, terrifying belief. Now compare this with Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov writes that extraordinary people have the right to overstep certain obstacles if the execution of their idea demands it. The idea justifies the transgression. The vision sanctifies the corpse. This is more than just similarity. This is the same philosophy articulated by two men a century and a continent apart. The only difference is confidence. Raskolnikov argues for the extraordinary man in a cramped room, trying to convince himself. Griffith states it on a terrace overlooking a kingdom, already living it. And here is where Griffith becomes more dangerous than Raskolnikov ever could be. Raskolnikov was repulsive, feverish, muttering. Nobody followed him anywhere. Griffith makes you want to be used. There's a question the Band of the Hawk never quite answers from themselves. Why do we follow him? It's not just competence, though he is staggeringly competent. It's not just charisma, though he has that too. Something much harder to name. Judo comes closest to naming it. In quiet moments, he admits to Guts that he doesn't fully understand why they follow Griffith. There's something beyond battle, beyond victory. Something Griffith believes in that ordinary people can't quite grasp. Griffith doesn't just have a dream. He embodies the possibility of dreaming in a world that punishes dreamers. The world of Berserk is hostile to hope. It runs on violence, hierarchy, and the understanding that your station at birth is your station at death. Ambition is dangerous. Dreams get people killed. And here comes Griffith, a gutter-born nobody who refuses to accept any of it. He doesn't rage against the system like a revolutionary. He doesn't philosophize about injustice. He simply acts as though the rules don't apply to him. And somehow, impossibly, they don't. This is what the Band of the Hawk is really following. Not just a man, but an idea. The idea that causality can be defied, that a person can refuse the life they were given and will another one into existence. They give him their dreams because his is the only one that seems to survive. But this creates a trap for them and for him, because Griffith needs them to believe in him. Their belief is the fuel for his ascent. And yet his entire philosophy insists that anyone who follows a dream instead of forming their own is by definition inferior. He is surrounded by people he has taught to admire him, and whom he cannot, by his own logic, respect. Lonely at the center, dependent on people he considers tools. This is the first crack, and the second crack has a name. Guts is the only person Griffith ever treats as an equal. This is obvious from their first encounter. Griffith doesn't recruit Guts the way he recruits others, by inspiring them or making them want to serve. He defeats Guts, claims him, and takes him by force. And then almost immediately, he begins treating him differently than anyone else. With Casca, Griffith is gentle but opaque. With Judo, he is friendly but distant. With his soldiers, he is luminous but untouchable. But with Guts, he's real. He asks Guts whether he thinks him cruel. He confides his philosophy. He allows himself to be seen uncertain, even vulnerable. When Guts is wounded, Griffith's composure cracks in a way it never does for anyone else. This is the great irony of Griffith's philosophy. He claims that only someone who pursues their own dream can be his friend. But Guts, for most of the Golden Age, doesn't have a dream. He follows Griffith because Griffith is the first person who ever made him feel like he had a place. Griffith loves him anyway. And because Griffith has spent his entire life suppressing his emotions and burying any attachment that might interfere with his ambition, he doesn't recognize what's happening to him. He doesn't understand that he's become dependent on a single person, the one thing his worldview cannot accommodate. He has been preaching self-reliance while becoming psychologically fused to another man. No homo, but by his own logic, this makes him weak, ordinary, a follower. He doesn't see it until Guts leaves. When Guts defeats him and walks away, something in Griffith shatters. Watch the aftermath carefully. This is not a man responding strategically to a setback like he usually does. He goes to Charlotte that night. Why? The surface explanation is lust or political maneuvering, but neither makes sense. Charlotte was already within his grasp, so he didn't need to rush. And Griffith has never been ruled by physical desire. What he's doing is simpler and more desperate. He's trying to feel something other than the void Guts left behind. He's trying to reassert control over anything because he's just lost control of the one thing that actually mattered. But it doesn't work, and then he gets sent to a dungeon. We need to understand what the torture does to Griffith. It doesn't just break his body, it annihilates his future. He cannot hold a sword, he cannot walk, and he cannot speak. He will never lead an army again. He will never stand before a crowd and feel their worship. The dream that defined his entire existence, that justified every corpse, every sacrifice, every suppressed human feeling, is now impossible. He blames Guts, of course he does. What broke him was Guts leaving, which led to Charlotte, which led to this. But beneath the blame is something worse. Griffith still loves him, even now, even ruined. When he tries to strangle Guts, he can't sustain it. His grip softens. The hatred curdles back into longing. He wants to be a god, but he keeps feeling like a man. This is where Griffith and Raskolnikov face the same test. Raskolnikov, broken by guilt, chooses confession, suffering, and his humanity. Griffith is about to be offered a different door. Let's be precise about what the God Hand offers. They do not offer power. Power is just a result. What they offer is a transaction. This is the price. Not strangers, not enemies, but the people Griffith loves. The God Hand knows he loves them. That's the entire point. You can't sacrifice what you don't value. The ritual only works if it costs you something real. The apologists who claim Griffith didn't care about his men are wrong. The text tells us so explicitly. He had to care about them for the sacrifice to function. But here's where Griffith diverges from Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov's conscience was built into his body. He couldn't choose to stop feeling. The guilt simply overwhelmed him beyond his control. Griffith is offered a genuine choice, and in making it, he learns something terrible about himself. He is able to stop feeling. Raskolnikov's theory failed because he couldn't kill his conscience. Griffith succeeds because he does exactly that. Not metaphorically, but literally. He trades his humanity for power, and the transaction holds. This is the answer to Dostoevsky's thought experiment. The extraordinary man is possible. You just have to be willing to become something that isn't a man anymore. So did he win? By every metric he ever set for himself, the answer is yes. He has his kingdom, he has his throne. The dream that swallowed 1,000 other dreams has finally been realized. But Dostoevsky's warning was never that the extraordinary man would fail to achieve his goals. The warning was that achieving them would make victory meaningless. Griffith has power, but no one who knows him. Worship, but no love. He transcended humanity so completely that he is now incapable of the things that make achievement satisfying. Connection, recognition, the warmth of being understood. And the manga tells us in its unfinished way that something still remains. Some tether, some echo. The merger with the Moonlight Boy means Griffith is not quite as emptied as he wanted to be. On certain nights, under certain skies, he still feels, which means he can still regret. He sacrificed his capacity for love in order to obtain a kingdom. and now he sits in that kingdom, occasionally haunted by the ghost of what love felt like, unable to get it back. This is not redemption, it's not even tragedy in the classical sense, it's something much colder. It's getting exactly what you wanted and discovering it was never what you needed. Raskolnikov failed to become the extraordinary man. His conscience refused to die. He spent 8 years in a prison camp and emerged capable of love. Griffith succeeded. His conscience is gone. He rules the world. But which one of them won? The story of Berserk doesn't give us an easy answer. It's not a morality play. Griffith is not punished by the narrative. He thrives. The good do not inherit the earth. But the story does something more subtle. It shows what Griffith's success costs. Not in karmic retribution, but in the texture of his existence. He got everything he wanted, and everything he wanted turns out to be a throne in an empty room. Raskolnikov's failure was his salvation. He remained human. And in remaining human, he remained capable of redemption, of change, of connection, of love. Griffith proved that a man can become a god, but he also proved what Dostoevsky suspected all along. Gods are alone. Gods cannot be forgiven. Gods cannot change or grow or learn. They can only reign forever over kingdoms built from the ashes of everyone who believed in them.